and welcome to Justice. I'm Judge Jeanine Pirro. Thanks so much for being with us tonight. Let's get right to my open. They always said it would happen quickly, and it did. It took less than 100 days to change America. Less than 100 days to take us down from that shining city on the hill. We knew the Trojan horse was hiding someone other than moderate Joe Biden. But now we know for sure that the Biden who has emerged, once a centrist, has embraced full-on socialism. Should any of you be doubting Thomas's Wednesday night speech before the joint session of Congress was proof positive of Biden's intent to move our nation from capitalism to socialism. The man who delivered the message was weak and frail, seemingly stilted and fragile, with none of the energy of a radiant Reagan, the charisma of a Clinton, the sass of a Bush, the eloquence of an Obama, nor the full-on patriotism of a Trump. The message was simple. America is in an existential crisis, and only money will get us out of it. The price tag? Astronomical. $6 trillion. He plans to spend more than the nation's debt when Bill Clinton took office. Biden is a moderate no more. Listen to Senator Lindsey Graham.
If I ever hear that Joe Biden's a moderate again, I'm going to thrill up. Because after a night, he embraced socialism. He made Barack Obama look like Ronald Reagan.
Biden says we're in the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression, suffering the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War, the worst pandemic in a century, an existential climate change crisis, insurrection, systemic racism, and only one solution: tax and spend. So now, in Biden's America, government will take care of you from cradle to grave. A massive government system to fix an America in crisis. Biden will tax us and create a system of caregivers, enhanced Obamacare, licensed and unionized caregivers, free education, affordable caregivers, 2 years of universal preschool, and 2 years of free community college. But you have to ask yourself, if Joe really cares that much about children, he said, quote, any country that out-educates us is going to out-compete us. Well, I guess he's good with other countries out-competing us, because here we are, 100 days in, and all public schools are still not open, as he promised there would be.
We did it, Joe. You're going to be the next president of the United States.
He admits that even though the U.S. accounts for less than 15% of carbon emissions worldwide, he wants to join the global fight and the Paris Climate Accord to help reduce the rest of the world's 85% and throw in our money to help make them do it. Make sense to you? And when AOC is excited about Joe Biden's plan, it's time to watch out.
Biden administration and President Biden has definitely exceeded expectations that progressives had. I'll be frank, I think a lot of us expected a much more conservative administration.
Joe has a plan for our cars. The cars of the future will not be using gas, they will be electric cars. Why? Well, the vast majority of batteries used in electric cars are made in China. You figure it out. And in the meantime, it will become slowly impossible to get gas for your gas-powered vehicles. It's already more than $4 a gallon in New York City. And get ready for that summer vacation you waited so long for. But by the way, did Joe say if it's okay to go out of town on the 4th of July? But Joe, he says he's focused on rooting out systemic racism. But one man, a leading voice in race relations, begs to differ.
America is not a racist country.
It's curious how Joe wants to end the, quote, exhausting war over immigration. His solution? A pathway to citizenship and finding out why illegals want to flee their home country. This while almost 10 million Americans are out of work. This failure to protect the border creates a fiscal budget deficit that will never go away. Besides offering employment opportunities for drug cartels, for smugglers, and for human traffickers. The family plan is the opposite of our American dream. It's putting Washington in the middle of your family. The repeated reference by President Biden that some of our laws are worse than Jim Crow does nothing but create resentment and build on discrimination. And police officers constantly being bombarded and accused of being racist makes it almost impossible to create a safe future for our children and grandchildren. As cops demonized and demoralized, retired, and quit, our cities will be left safe. There is nothing happening here, though, that hasn't happened before. Any student of world history will tell you how socialism begins, how it takes over, and what happens next. I don't know about you, but I don't want government in the middle of my family, my health care, my education, or anything else. I don't want my grandchildren being taught that they live in a racist nation founded on bigotry. I don't want my children or anyone else apologizing for the color of their skin. God made me the way I am, and I sure as hell am not sorry for that. And I don't want you to tell me that I have to take an Amtrak train and not an airplane because you think I should or because it reminds you of your good old days. I want to go forward in time, not backwards. I don't like your telling me I shouldn't eat a burger. Go tell China or India to take care of their carbon emission problems and stop punishing me for what they're doing and then making me pay for it. And you don't tell me anything about my gun or my magazine because you know it's none of your damn business. And if you agree with me and you don't like the socialist nonsense and the hate, divisiveness, and the dependence on government and taxation through the roof, and you want to go back to being an American in the true sense of the word, you've got one chance left. 2022 is your last chance, your last hope of changing this government and stopping the move of the socialists. One chance of actually living the life that we bargained for in the land of the free and the home of the brave, the United States of America. And that's my open. Let me know what you think on my Facebook and Twitter, hashtag Judge Jeanine. And if you like my opens, you'll love my closing at the end of the show. But first, joining me right now with a reaction to my open and much more, Congressman Byron Donalds and Fox News contributor Laura Trump. Thank you both for being here this evening. I'm going to start with you, Congressman. You know, what happened in after the speech was that Tim Scott was referred to as Uncle Tim. It was trending on Twitter because he made some statements about the fact that he didn't believe that America was systemically racist. What is your take on that?
Tim Scott's absolutely right. America is not systemically racist. It's important for everybody to understand, and Judge, we all understand. Our history is very clear when it comes to slavery, to segregation, to Jim Crow. It is a dark history. But if you look at the progression of America from 100 years ago to 50 years ago to today, we are a far different country than the issues we've had in our past. The reason why the left wants to demean Tim Scott, the reason why they want to demean black conservatives and want to push this radical notion that America is systemically racist is because you need Americans to hate their country in order to push these radical agenda policies through. It's really that simple. So I'm glad that Tim Scott stood up and said what we've all been thinking while Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and the left have been pushing this nasty idea that we're a systemically racist country. We are not. And even Kamala Harris had to go out there the very next morning and say with George Stephanopoulos that we are not a racist country.
Well, you know, what's interesting, Laura, is that, you know, the left is supposed to be so tolerant, and not one Democrat stood up, not one leftist, one liberal said, you know what, this is racism. To call Senator Tim Scott Uncle Tim is racism. And none of them talked about that. None of them, they're intolerant. How would you describe them?
You mean Yeah, the party of unity, you mean? The Democrats? Well, obviously, they're the biggest hypocrites of all. It's really sad what we have seen happen. I think it was totally egregious the way that Tim Scott was treated. It is the definition of bigotry and racism, to your point. But I want to go back to what you said in your open. 2022, I want Americans to pay very, very close attention to this. Remember, Judge, back during the campaign when we couldn't get a straight answer from Joe Biden as to whether or not he would pack the Supreme Court, whether or not he thought the D.C. statehood was a good thing. These are things that he wants to get done, and he wants to get them done very quickly because he knows that come 2022, Americans are going to be sick and tired of being told, we don't think you can celebrate the 4th of July. They're trying to stop Mount Rushmore from having fireworks, for goodness sakes. We want our freedom back. We want our liberty back. And 2022 is when Americans have to get out. If you love this country, get out and vote, because it is our last chance. They're going to do everything they can to make sure that the Democrats are remaining in power for eternity. So 2022, it was a great point. Republicans, get out and vote like our country and our lives depend on it, because they do.
They do. And Congressman, the question that I have is whether or not the $6 trillion that Joe Biden is talking about, which really was the deficit of the United States of America when Bill Clinton took office, whether or not that kind of money will be voted on by Congress and by the Senate. Will it get through the Congress?
The way they're looking at doing this right now is through budget reconciliation. And unfortunately, the only person that's going to be able to stop this madness is going to be Joe Manchin. I know he came out right after the State of the Union and was shaking his head in absolute disgust and disbelief, because what the president is trying to do is completely radical and insane. Our country's ready to be unleashed. Our economy's ready to be unleashed. We don't need another $6 trillion in spending. We need these governors and these blue states to get off of the neck of the American people. But it's a possibility, Judge. Let's be very clear. Elections do have consequences. And like Laura was saying, that's why 2022 is so important. We need Republicans out there voting.
Okay, and Laura, one of the things that your father-in-law, former President Trump, was so proud of was that America was becoming independent of the OPEC countries and the gas and the oil from those countries. And now Joe Biden is making a point to say, we've got to have electric cars and, and the batteries that propel them. Well, what do you say about that?
Well, what was his first order of business right after he got inaugurated? 11,000 energy jobs immediately eliminated in the United States of America. You were right. Under President Donald Trump, we were energy independent. We were a net energy exporter for the first time in history. That meant that we were no longer reliant on the Middle East, no longer reliant on Russia for anything. Think about not only how great that was for the United States, just for taxpayers and our pocketbooks sense, but on the world stage, national security, we have lost that. We are back in the Paris Climate Accord. We are back in these nonsensical deals that hurt Americans and do nothing but virtue signal. That is what this administration, the Biden-Harris or Harris-Biden administration, is all about, virtue signaling. It's ridiculous.
Well, and last to you, Congressman Donalds, the truth is that, America, according to Joe Biden, is now in a better situation with the rest of the world. What is your take?